16 years of sacrifice, my daughter called her stepmom her real mom. Then she looked at me with ice in her eyes and said, "You're just a temporary mother. My name is Elena Ward, I'm 34 years old. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when every sleepless night, every scraped knee kissed, every bill paid with nothing left in my wallet, all of it, is erased with a single cruel sentence." The courtroom lights were harsh, bouncing off polished oak, but nothing cut harder than her words. I could still see the flashbacks playing in my head as she spoke. 16 years of me working doubles, selling my own jewelry, giving up vacations, birthdays, and even health, just to make sure she had shoes that fit, lunches packed, and a future worth chasing. And now, here she stood beside her stepmother, hand clutching the woman's arm like I was a stranger. Her lawyer painted me as bitter, unfit, irrelevant. My daughter didn't even glance my way. She was too busy nodding along with the woman who had entered her life a few years ago and somehow rewritten the entire story. "Your Honor," the lawyer said, "this adoption should proceed. It's what she wants. It's what's best." Elena was never more than a placeholder. The word placeholder echoed like a hammer to my ribs. I didn't shout. I didn't break down. Instead, I pulled a slim folder from my bag. Inside was the one thing they had overlooked, the one thing they thought I didn't have. When I handed it to the judge, his brows lifted. His eyes cut to them, sharp as glass. And I thought, now it's their turn to feel erased. The judge's fingers traced the edge of the folder, his eyes narrowing as he flipped the first page. The courtroom, noisy a moment ago, fell into a suffocating hush. "What is this?" he asked, his tone sharper than before. I folded my hands on the table. "Proof, Your Honor. Financial statements, custody records, school documents, all under my name. 16 years of my life, accounted for, penny by penny, hour by hour. The kind of sacrifices that don't vanish because my daughter suddenly decided I was temporary." My daughter's lawyer rose quickly. "Objection, Your Honor. These records." The judge raised a hand, silencing him. His eyes scanned faster now, flipping from receipts of hospital visits I paid for, to mortgage papers showing the roof over her head was mine, to bank statements proving every dollar I had poured into her life. I didn't need to look at my daughter to know she was squirming. I could feel the heat radiating from her side of the courtroom. Finally, I glanced over. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the folder like it was poison, her stepmom gripping her hand too tightly. "You see," I said softly, the words steady, "temporary mothers don't take out second jobs to cover braces. Temporary mothers don't sit in hospital waiting rooms all night when their child can't breathe. Temporary mothers don't lose their youth just to make sure their child has a future. But I did." The judge set the folder down slowly. His eyes, when they lifted to my daughter and her stepmom, were no longer neutral. They were cold. "This," he said, voice echoing, "changes everything." For the first time that day, my daughter's smug certainty faltered, and the silence that followed felt like the beginning of justice. My daughter's stepmom shot to her feet, her heels clacking against the tile. "Your Honor, this is irrelevant. She's just trying to guilt a child into choosing her. What matters is where my stepdaughter feels loved, not receipts from the past." Her voice dripped with fake confidence, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. The judge leaned back in his chair. "Irrelevant? 16 years of documented care and sacrifice is not irrelevant. In fact, it's legally central. You are asking this court to erase a mother. I will not do that lightly." I stayed still, my palms flat against the table. Inside, my heart thundered, but I refused to let them see me shake. Then my daughter's lawyer tried a different angle. "Your Honor, while Ms. Ward may have provided financially, emotional neglect is another matter entirely. Our client feels her stepmother has been the real mother in every meaningful way." That was the dagger. They wanted to paint me as cold, detached, replaceable. I swallowed hard, then reached for the second folder in my bag. Slowly, deliberately, I slid it across the table. "If emotional neglect is your argument, perhaps we should review this as well." The judge opened it. Photos, videos, letters. Every birthday card I'd kept. Every photo of me in hospital waiting rooms with her in my arms. Every teacher's note thanking me for attending parent conferences alone. And the video, time-stamped, me cheering in the bleachers at her soccer games while the stepmom wasn't even present. The judge watched in silence as the screen lit up with my daughter's 12-year-old self hugging me, whispering, "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." My daughter's face went pale. Her stepmom's lips parted with no words. And the courtroom shifted. The video ended, the sound of my daughter's younger voice echoing through the silent courtroom. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." She shifted in her chair, cheeks flushed, refusing to meet my eyes. Her stepmom squeezed her hand tightly, whispering something I couldn't hear. The judge adjusted his glasses, gaze firm. "So this is the same woman you now call temporary? The one you're trying to erase from your life and records?" My daughter's lawyer stammered, "Children's feelings change over time, Your Honor." "Feelings may change," the judge cut him off, "but facts don't. This evidence shows consistent, active, present motherhood for 16 years. He tapped the folder. "It's becoming harder and harder to accept the claim that Ms. Ward was nothing but a placeholder." I stayed quiet, but my eyes locked on my daughter. I wasn't angry in that moment. I was hurt. Deeply. The kind of hurt that years of exhaustion and sacrifice only make sharper. "You once told me," I whispered, my voice carrying despite the silence, "that I was your safe place. That no matter what happened, I was home. Do you remember that, sweetheart?" Her lips trembled. She shook her head, staring at the desk as if the wood grain could swallow her whole. The judge leaned forward. "If there's more proof, Ms. Ward, I'd like to see it." I nodded. "There is." I pulled out the final piece, the legal documents showing the trust fund. A $2 million account I had fought for, saved into, protected for her future. And the clause at the bottom, adoption by another party nullifies access. The judge read it aloud. Gasps rippled through the room. My daughter's eyes finally met mine, shocked, wide, and terrified. And for the first time, it wasn't me on trial anymore. The judge read the final line twice, his brow furrowing deeper with every word. Adoption by another party nullifies access. The courtroom erupted in whispers. My daughter's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a single raised hand. "This is binding?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said, my voice steady. 16 years ago, I opened that trust. Every extra dollar I made, every sleepless night, every sacrifice I put away for her future, it went into that account. $2 million, protected under one condition. If she chose to be adopted by anyone else, she would lose it. Gasps echoed through the gallery. My daughter's stepmom's face drained of color. She grabbed my daughter's hand tighter, whispering urgently, but the girl's wide eyes stayed locked on the papers. The judge tapped the document. So, if this adoption proceeded, she would legally forfeit $2 million? Yes, I confirmed quietly. She wouldn't just erase me. She'd erase her future. My daughter's lips parted, trembling. You tricked me." I swallowed, meeting her gaze. "No. I protected you. Because I knew there might come a day when someone convinced you I wasn't enough. And now you see what that day costs." Her lawyer scrambled, flipping through papers muttering, "There must be a loophole." But the judge had already closed the folder. His verdict was written across his face. "This court cannot and will not approve an adoption that results in this kind of financial self-destruction. Case dismissed." The gavel struck, sharp and final. My daughter looked shattered, her stepmom furious, whispering venom in her ear. But all I felt was an ache, a mix of grief and relief, as the courtroom emptied. For 16 years, I had carried everything. And now, finally, the weight shifted back to them. The courtroom emptied slowly, but I stayed seated, watching from the corner of my eye. My daughter refused to look at me. She clung to her stepmom's arm, but her face was pale, her lips trembling. $2 million, she whispered harshly. You told me this was the right thing. You told me she had nothing left for me. Her stepmom stiffened. Money isn't everything. I'm your real mom now. We don't need her. But my daughter's voice rose, sharp enough to cut through the quiet hall. Real mom? A real mom doesn't erase someone's life. A real mom doesn't push me into losing my future. You lied. The word stung me, because for years, I'd prayed to hear her defend me. Yet hearing it now, aimed at the woman she had chosen over me, twisted something deep inside. Her stepmom's mask cracked. Don't raise your voice. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Do you know how hard I worked for this? For what? My daughter shot back. For me to lose everything? You played me like a pawn. Their voices echoed down the corridor, and for once, I didn't step in to mediate, didn't soften the blow. I let them unravel, every thread of their alliance tearing in public. My lawyer touched my arm gently. You don't need to stay. You've already won. But this wasn't about winning. It was about truth. I stood slowly, gathering the folders, and finally let my daughter's gaze find mine. For the first time that day, her eyes weren't cold. They were uncertain. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Just silence. And sometimes, silence says everything. The week after the courtroom battle, our home felt like a war zone. Calls from relatives, neighbors whispering, friends picking sides. It was exhausting. My daughter stayed mostly silent, but her eyes darted to me now and then, filled with questions she didn't dare ask aloud. Her stepmom tried to assert control, but the cracks were widening. She barked orders, threw passive-aggressive comments my way, but my daughter no longer flinched. She questioned, she paused, she hesitated, tiny signs that the illusions her stepmom built were starting to crumble. One evening, I found her phone unlocked on the counter. Messages from her stepmom, carefully hidden, threatened to rewrite her story if she didn't comply. My daughter froze as she read them, pale and shaking. You see now, I said softly, why truth matters more than money. She nodded, tears threatening, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of the bond we had almost lost. The next day, during a family gathering, her stepmom tried to flaunt control again. She boasted about her achievements, her influence, even her wisdom in guiding my daughter. But I had prepared quietly, emails, receipts, texts, all proof of her manipulations and lies. I didn't shout. I simply laid the evidence out on the table. Gasps filled the room. Faces paled. The people who had once supported her stepmom turned, incredulous, staring at the undeniable truth. My daughter looked at me, eyes wide, a hesitant smile beginning to form. Her stepmom froze, realizing her empire of deceit was collapsing. Every insult, every threat, every manipulation backfired, leaving her exposed and powerless. Finally, silence. Heavy, absolute silence, except for my daughter, whispering, I understand now. And in that moment, I realized that revenge wasn't about anger or destruction. It was about justice, clarity, and reclaiming what was rightfully ours. The courtroom doors closed behind us one last time. My daughter sat beside me, quieter than ever, her stepmom nowhere in sight, stripped of influence, stripped of the $2 million she had tried to claim. I watched my daughter carefully. Her eyes were a mix of confusion, relief, and something deeper, recognition. She finally saw that loyalty, love, and truth couldn't be bought, manipulated, or rewritten. Weeks later, I received an email from her stepmom, cold, short, and bitter. No apologies, no explanations. Just the acknowledgement that everything she tried to take was gone. Every subtle insult, every hidden agenda, every lie exposed, gone. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The law had spoken, justice had been served, and my daughter finally understood her real foundation, me. We began rebuilding quietly. Not with extravagant gestures or public displays, but with simple dinners, late-night talks, laughter that returned slowly, hesitantly, but genuinely. I watched her grow into herself, shedding layers of fear, doubt, and manipulation. Her stepmom's shadow faded into the background, powerless and irrelevant. I knew she would never recover the control she craved, and that knowledge alone was enough. One evening, as we sat together watching old family photos, my daughter leaned against me and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up, even when I didn't understand." I smiled, feeling every sacrifice of 16 years, every sleepless night, every moment of quiet endurance finally pay off. It wasn't vengeance in the fiery sense. It was patience, resilience, and the quiet power of truth. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was precise, inevitable, and deeply satisfying. And as I held my daughter close, watching her finally feel safe and whole, I knew this chapter was complete.